Today, we're going to go over the postmortem, Cal versus UNLV. I'm talking to Coach. We're going to look at some film. That's coming up right now. Hey everybody, welcome to Bear Insider, Ultimate Insider Podcast. I am Mike Pulaski, and today we are talking about the Bears versus the Rebels. UNLV game just over, and the Bears get a win, 20-14. So first and foremost, it is really hard to get a win at this level of football, at any level of football really, but especially at the college level, really hard to get a win. So you've got to celebrate every single win that you get, week in, week out. If you get a win, it's huge, counts towards a bowl. Bears get a little more confidence from that win. But while you're celebrating the win, you can never be satisfied with the win. You can never be satisfied with success because you've always got to keep polishing the stone, got to keep getting better. And there is plenty to polish after this game. We'll talk about that coming up in a little bit. I will talk to head coach Coach Wilcox coming up in a little bit as well. We're going to start on the defensive side of the ball today. I usually start on the offense as a quarterback. That's where I look first. But I thought versus UNLV, defense played a really solid game. The first and foremost, the biggest thing that jumps off the page is conversion downs. That's third and fourth down when UNLV was looking to convert to continue their drives. Cal kept them 2 for 16. That is a fantastic stat. 1 and 8, 12.5% conversions on third down. That is a championship level of stopping an opponent's offense. UNLV had a couple of good players back there in Doug Brumfeld at the quarterback spot and Ricky White at receiver. And so they were really good, scored 45 points in the first half of the week, 2 weeks prior versus Idaho State. But Cal was really good, kept them off the board, kept them off the field, really. They stopped drives with those conversions. I thought on defense, as a whole, the unit got better last week versus UNLV. And we talked about it, jumping up from Davis, who's a good football team, but they're an FCS-level football team, to UNLV, who is a group of 5 schools team. Now you have twitchier guys, faster, bigger, a little bit stronger, and you have to step up your game. And I thought the defense did that. We'll start up front. That defensive line, I thought, was pretty good. Remember, Brett Johnson, to begin the season, was a huge loss for the Bears. And so they're trying to fill in some holes right now. I thought the defensive line did an excellent job. Obviously, they have to be part of it on those third down situations. I think the coaching staff did a nice job, too, of calling some defenses that help manufacture some pressures. They used Daniel Scott in pressure a couple times. They used some secondary pressures. They brought some linebackers. And so I think creating pressure not just with your front 4 or your front 3, but also moving people around, getting pressure from the secondary, keeping quarterbacks guessing is a huge part of that defensive game plan. I thought the Bears coaching staff did a nice job of doing that, as well as they figure out who they've got on defense, the guys they like, the guys, and what they can do and what they do well. They're doing an excellent job of utilizing scheme to go with talent. And so I thought that was really nice up front. At linebacker, I thought that linebacker group definitely got better last week. It's funny because we call Jackson Sherman's name on the radio all the time. We call Femi Oladejo's name all the time on the radio. But they're quietly having pretty good seasons so far. Jackson Sherman comes in with 17 tackles, leads the team right now. Femi comes in with 16 tackles, so right behind him, both inside linebacker spots. So pretty good players, making a lot of tackles, doing what they're supposed to do at that linebacker spot. And then Xavier Colton, the transfer from Utah, got another sack this week, another quarterback hurry, another tackle for loss. And so that gives him 2.5 sacks on the year, and he is doing a nice job in there pressuring the quarterback, getting after him, showing those pass rush skills that fans had heard about when he got here. Also, Miles Jernigan getting in on a lot of the action up front as well. So some guys really contributing in pressuring the quarterback, stopping the run, doing great things from the inside and outside linebacker spots. Secondary, I think the secondary is gelling. It's coming together. Craig Woodson, who missed the entire year, the year before, was extremely solid versus UNLV. I think Lumaja Hearns, too. I just love watching him play. He reminds me a lot of Cam Bynum. And Cam, I used to call the silent assassin. All he did was shut down receivers, and all he does now is play on Sundays. And so I think Lumaja Hearns has that same type of swag. Is he going to be that guy? Maybe. He's young. He's just a sophomore. And so I just think he has the tools to play that position. They went after him several times with Ricky White, who was their star receiver, and Lumaja Hearns shut him down. And so I thought that was a pretty good game for him. I think Isaiah Young on the other side as well was good in this game. I think that they are getting better all across the board. Jeremiah Irby, also a good football player back in that secondary, and Colin Gamble in that nickel spot, doing really well right now. One guy I want to focus on is Daniel Scott, who this past game had an opportunity to pressure the quarterback early on, had a sack, and decided he was going to leave his feet and try to get it, and Brumfeld made a miss. That quarterback was really athletic. And so they dialed up a similar blitz, or maybe even the same blitz later on in the game, and Daniel Scott had another opportunity to get back there and get the sack. And that time, the second time, he didn't leave his feet. He kept his base, made the tackle, made the play. And so huge play for Daniel Scott in the game, a huge play overall for that Bears defense. And I think Daniel Scott is obviously one of the leaders on that defensive side of the ball. Super bright, very intuitive, clearly studies film so he can anticipate what's going on out there, and a guy who leads with his play as well as his voice. We will talk to Coach about Daniel Scott coming up here shortly. Now let's flip the page, turn it over to the offensive side of the ball. I think once again we'll start at that quarterback spot. Jack Plummer got better this last game versus UNLV. He's a guy who he's under pressure a lot. We'll talk about that O-line. We'll specifically talk about the O-line with Coach Wilcox coming up here. But I think Jack Plummer right now is getting hit more than he needs to be hit at that position. I think he's trying to escape pressure more than he needs to escape pressure at that position. And so Angus McClure, that offensive line, has their work cut out for them to get better, especially this week going into Notre Dame. But Jack Plummer, once again, 28 for 39. He went 278 on the day, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. It's a pretty efficient day for a quarterback, especially in the situation he was in. So he threw some balls on time that were really good throws with anticipation, which is what you need at that quarterback spot. So I thought he played extremely well for what was going on out there on the field. I thought the receiver group really got better this last game. They were pretty good against Davis, but they were a lot better, a lot more evenly distributed. I know we got 11 touches versus Davis. This last game, you had Jeremiah Hunter, 5 catches for 79 yards. You had J. Michael Sturdivant, go off 6 catches for 49 yards. And Maven Anderson actually made his presence known pretty quick. Caught a ball in the flat, hurdled one defender, just looked super athletic out there, and you can see the explosiveness. He had 5 for 48 too. And so starting to show all those guys with all the talent some love out there. And they did a really nice job out there, I think, at that receiver spot. That is such a bonus for this offense. I think BT Burl-Toller, third, did a fantastic job recruiting that position. Obviously, it's his position, not just as a coach, but as a player, it was his position too. And so BT needs to get a little bit of love because he is a fantastic recruiter. He is coaching those guys up. They are getting it done out there. And so good to see that Cal guy in that receiver room doing great things with Cal receivers. But hats off to Burl-Toller on that, and hats off to that position group because they are looking pretty good out there. Running back, once again, Jade Knott is the Pac-12 Freshman of the Week. He's just a phenom out there. You see him make plays. I watched every single snap of offense, and there were plays where he didn't get the blocking he needed, yet he still just made a guy miss and then ran away. And so he is going to be a phenom. He is really good right now as a freshman, but he's getting better and better, and he is going to continue to get better at that running back position. I can't wait to see what he turns into because he's got some real skill for that spot, and he's super smooth. I said it on the air. He reminds me, in terms of the way he accelerates, of Russell White, where when you watched Russ, you didn't think, wow, he is fast, but he would just pull away from dudes because he was so smooth, just a glider when he ran. And I think Jade Knott has that same kind of quality to his running. He glides, but he just accelerates past people like they're standing still. And so really good football player, came off in this game, just 7 rushes, 52 yards, caught 3 passes. Another pass, made a dude miss, just accelerated away. Touchdown rushing, touchdown receiving. And so I think Jade Knott doing a fantastic job out there at running back. And quietly, Kaleki Latu is having a really good year catching the ball as well. He had 4 for 45 his last game. But I think he does a nice job in space, getting out there, catching the ball, we heard a lot about Jermaine Terry, and Jermaine Terry, obviously, part of the offense, he's been in there. Hasn't been a big target for him yet, but Kaleki Latu as well has been a big target at that tight end spot. So I think offense was efficient. They can get more efficient in this game. When they got down to the red zone, that efficiency stopped. They had 3 shots in the red zone. They came away with 6 points, 2 field goals. You can't do that. You cannot trade field goals for touchdowns. It is a sure way to lose games. And so they have to be more efficient when they get into the red zone. It's fine to be efficient between, the 20s, but once you get down inside the 20, you've really got to dial it in, focus on what you're doing, and put that ball in the end zone. And the Bears just didn't do it this last game. 1 turnover, and then, of course, coming away with 2 field goals, no bueno. And so they're going to have to get better at that, at red zone efficiency, finding answers, whether it be plays, whether it be players, whether it's getting that offensive line together. They've got to get that done. We will talk more about the offensive line coming up with Coach. And so I'll let Coach handle that one. That is kind of my review of the game going in, kind of the personnel that I thought were really good in the game. So now it's time for my interview with Coach Wilcox, and we're talking about what the team looks like here going into week 3 versus Notre Dame, but coming off of UC Davis and UNLV, just trying to get a general picture of what the Bears look like right now.
Well, we're still work in progress. I think we all know that. Players have competed hard. I think they're giving us great effort. We have to play better football. And there's a lot of opportunities to do that. They're usually small things that make a big difference. And I think we came out of last week's game saying the same thing. There's, stretches of drives and quarters and stretches of the game where we're playing really well. And then other times where we're not. And it's usually, something pretty small. And it doesn't, just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy. The other teams are good too, and they're well coached, but we can do a much better job overall. And I'm really proud of how the guys are competing, even though things haven't gone smooth or maybe according to plan, but they've found a way to win and keep competing to the last whistle. So coming out of UNLV, offense started very strong, moved the ball really well in the first half, and 2 touchdowns right off the bat, created a bunch of explosive plays, and looked in rhythm. However, the negative plays and sacks hurt us, and then the finishing in the red zone. I mean, we all know that, and there's reasons for that. We got to improve upon defensively. Really great job on the conversion downs. 3rd and 4th downs, they did a heck of a job. We missed too many tackles. We got to get one more step in the ground, one more revolution on our tackles, and we got to get rid of that. We've had 2 explosive runs each of the past 2 games. If we rid ourselves of that, I think we'll be playing much better defensively. But the ST special teams, the cover units, punt and kickoff, I think are doing a really good job, other than one small detail on the punts. And the return units have to get much better.
Let's break out a couple of those things you talked about in terms of the explosive run, right? Another one we talked about last week being gap sound, everybody being in their run fit. Looked like you guys missed a gap again or missed a run fit again. What happened on that play?
Well, that was really wasn't a gap integrity issue. It was a missed tackle. So there's a difference between missing a tackle and, being out of your run fit. There was one guy at the point of attack who could have played it better on a ricochet because we were in a movement. And then, we missed a tackle. I mean, we flat out missed a tackle, and the guy went for 31 yards, and we were in a pressure. And when you pressure people and you commit more people to line of scrimmage, as we know, you lose some overlap in the secondary, and that's what happened. So we were being aggressive and missed the tackle, and that's what happened.
Yeah, once you fit up, you better make that tackle, right? Because you're the last guy.
Yes.
And offensively, at one point, I remember reading the stat, the average 3rd down for you guys was 3rd and 10.3. Pressures were obviously a big piece of that. Penalties were a piece of that. Talk about that on offense, because that's what leads to being inconsistent after those first couple drives.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go backwards. I think we talked last week. We were on the other side of it a week ago against Davis. 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 4, much more manageable. And if you're near midfield, a lot of times you got 2 downs to convert. When you're 3rd and 7, 8, 9, 10 plus, that's not good, and your percentages go down significantly. We converted some, but we made it very difficult on ourselves at time with giving up negative plays or penalties. So, those are obvious things that we have to improve upon.
Defensively, Daniel Scott continues to show up as a guy making big plays. Had an opportunity early for a tackle and then came back and got one later in the game. Talk about that, what he adds to that defense, what he brings.
Yeah, veteran guy, got football savvy. Love that he's on our team. He's a leader for us, and great job by Pete and the DB coaches and everybody on defense getting those pressures lined up, when we needed them the most, and got very aggressive. And Daniel, I think he hurried or sacked the quarterback. There's probably, 2 in a row and then another 4th down earlier in the game. So he was in the backfield a lot, and that was great to see. So Daniel played a good game, and he probably a couple plays from playing a great game. He would tell you the same. But we have high expectations for him, and he's got even higher expectations for himself. But really glad he's on our team.
And early in the season, obviously, Brett Johnson was a huge loss. We talked about the defensive line. Where do they stand at this point in the season in terms of their development, in terms of guys making plays up there?
Work in progress. You see flashes. We saw flashes from those guys up front. Now it's just more consistency. Ethan, there's times when Ethan's very difficult to block, but we got to have more consistency. Same with Ricky, all those guys up front. I just think there's talented guys. They're not real experienced. We got to be really disciplined with our eyes, with our technique. Andrew Browning's as good as there is and coaching them and teaching them, but we've got to get more consistent in the games with those things because they have the ability to play even better.
And is it one of those things where, the bell finally goes off? Oh, that's what I have to do every down. That's what I have to like. As somebody gets more experience, they start to realize if I focus 100% on this moment and go in this moment every time, it works way better than kind of giving in to my human instinct to kind of take one off.
Yeah. Or get a little bit excited and do something that out of the ordinary, and I imagine you can attest that when that time comes and that bell goes off, the game maybe slows down for you. That's the term everybody uses, and it doesn't seem so difficult. It doesn't mean that it's easy, but it's just not complicated. It's playing your technique with maximum effort every time, and if you can do that, good things happen. So it's very simple from where we all sit. To young guys that are still learning to play, and that that bell has to go off at some point, and we hope it's sooner than later.
Yeah, I called it my Matrix moment personally, where all of a sudden you're like, oh, now I get it. And so you stop worrying about the things that don't matter and only focus on those things that do matter. And the game gets way simpler to understand.
Yeah.
Let's switch sides of the ball, talk about the offense. We'll talk about the offensive line in a little bit, but quarterback Jack Plummer had some pressure on him, but he's still, I think, playing at a pretty high level for the situation that he's in right now. He's got great receivers out there. He's got guys in his lap. He's having to move. But I think he's playing at a pretty high level as I watch film on him.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think he can play even better. I think he would tell you that. He's, the game makes sense to him. He looks very comfortable out there. He threw some very good balls. I mean, early in the game, the one to Jeremiah, I don't care who you're playing, that's difficult to defend. He threw some really nice balls on kind of deep outbreaking routes and comebacks, outs to the field, sail routes. In-break dig to Mason Mangum that was a fantastic throw. Still had a few that I think he could be a little more accurate on. Again, he would tell you the same thing. But overall, I think he's doing well and everything that we need him to do. And now it's just about, fine-tuning. To play at a championship level, it's always going to be, that last couple percentage points. And that's where he's at right now. And I think he can play even better. And we as an offense can help him. Coaches, players alike. And that's what we're expecting from everybody, to take that next step. And some guys are further along in their development and some guys are just getting going, but we need everybody to do that.
I thought that early ball of Jeremiah Hunter that you pointed out is if understanding the position, if you understand the position, you realize how much he trusts Jeremiah Hunter with that ball, because as a quarterback, the thought process is if he's even, he's leaving, right? So if they get even, now I'm going to throw that go ball over the top. But if they're not even, either you don't throw it or it's a back shoulder ball or something. Well, Hunter hadn't closed the cushion because they were so high off him, yet he still threw that over the top ball, which means he trusted him to go get that ball.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Jack threw a number of balls the other day, on time or early. And that's not easy to do. That's a skill in itself. And that one was an example. Again, some of those outcuts to Kalecki, and he had a couple to J Mike, so I think you can see the anticipation. And as you know, Mike, you know better than anybody, that quality at quarterback is really important. And to be able to anticipate what the route's going to look like, where it's going to end up, and throw it early, and not wait until they're open and to throw it. And he does a good job of that.
It's the absolute difference maker, right? All the quarterbacks that I coach, I tell them timing beats coverage 99.9% of the time. If you can throw it on time, I don't care how tight they are, you're probably going to win. And so it's a huge one, and it's a huge one for that quarterback position, especially new in an offense early in the season. For him to have that trust, you're seeing him develop at that position, which is why I say he's kind of playing up at that high level. One guy popped off the page was Maven Anderson early, like showing some crazy athleticism, making dudes miss, catching those short balls, showing his speed. I really liked the way he was playing on Saturday.
Yeah. I've had the luxury of seeing that for a while now. And Maven is a unique athlete. He's very strong. He's fast. He's competitive. He's got ball skills. And so you saw, even I think it was the second or third play of the game, maybe it was the second play, where he caught the ball on the sideline and stepped through the tackle. It didn't look like much. And, they ruled him out of bounds. It was probably pretty close, but just to step through that and make a, good gain out of not much. And then the one on the shallow cross on fourth down, there was a slot defender there that would have had a chance to make the play short of the sticks. He stepped through that one and then hurdled the next guy, and then almost ran that one in. And then later in the game, he had the third down, really good coverage by the defensive back, and he just jumped up and took it right off his helmet. And so you can see those skills from Maven, and he's a young guy, but he's very talented, and we're going to keep trying to find ways to get him the ball.
Yeah, I told Jack he owes his receivers a couple sandwiches from cheese and stuff, because those guys took some balls away from the defense, which when your guys are doing that, you feel comfortable throwing the ball at any time, which is awesome. Let's get back to that offensive line. It's the one sore point for me, right? I watch every snap of offensive film on game film and kind of review it all. And they have not come together yet. Let's talk about those big guys. What needs to happen up front?
Well, I think it's, if it was one thing, it'd probably be easy to solve. It's, it's usually something small, an identification error, where we are expecting help when we don't have help, on a certain protection. Maybe it's a communication thing. Maybe it's just a technique thing. There was a couple times where it was just poor technique that got us beat. And so it's all of that. And we have to keep pushing, and we have to get better. And the guys are working. There's no doubt about it. They're putting time in. They're spending extra time in video. But we can play much better there. I think the players have the capability of playing much better at that position, and we're going to need to. And it's, listen, it's not all one position. We can all help each other. Defense can do better. Offense can do better. The units within that can do better. And so our job as coaches is to help those guys take that next step. And that's what's got to happen with that group as well.
Yeah. And I love O-liners. So if they were playing well, I would love to slobber all over them, right? And tell them how great they are. But you've also got to be honest with them too. And those guys have to pick up their game right now. There's no doubt about it.
You got it.
Yeah. Well, appreciate you coming on, Coach. Looking forward to the game this week, and looking forward to watching the Bears back in South Bend.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Go Bears.
So as you heard from Coach, still a bunch of stuff to work on. Never be unhappy about a win, but know that you can keep improving. That's what this Cal team has to do right now. Earlier, I had a chance to catch up with Jack Plummer as well to talk about where his game is at this point in the season. So, Jack, 2 weeks under your belt, 2 games, getting ready for Notre Dame coming up. Tell me, where do you think you are? Progress so far? How do you feel about your game? How do you feel about the 2 games you played?
The biggest thing is we're 2-0, and, you can't complain about being undefeated. And can I play a little bit better? Yeah, sure. Everyone can play, a little bit better. And I feel like I've played well enough for the team to win. And going to Notre Dame, just looking to build and, keep stacking days.
Yeah, well, I told you, Mom texted in, and she's pretty critical of Cal quarterbacks. She and his son's a Cal quarterback, and if you get the Mama P seal of approval, you're good to go, and she likes you. So I'll just give you that much. You've got a big fan down in SoCal.
Perfect. Yeah, that's what matters. I think that's what I said last time. That's all that matters right there.
Exactly. If mom's happy, it's all good. Yep. Talk to me about your game. In as much as we've seen it in this offense. Love the vertical passing game. Love you working the system. Talk about what's coming easy for you right now. What do you need to work on?
I think I need to work on being more accurate on the short throws. That way our guys can catch and run and maximize yards off that. I think I'm doing a good job of seeing the field and seeing the defenses that, that are played against us. And I think, even as time goes on, I'll, progress in that, and it'll be, easier for me to get from, 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And yeah, I think just the more plays I get in the system, the better I'll be.
And I'll add, and you don't need to say it, you've done a great job escaping pressure too, right? So if you're not escaping pressure, if you feel a comfortable pocket back there, getting from 1 to 4 is a whole lot easier than jumping up, trying to climb a pocket, and then trying to get through 1 through 4. So when that settles down for you, you're also going to be a lot cleaner back there. It's going to make your progressions a lot better.
Yep.
Talk to me about your receivers. So far, obviously, Jeremiah has been #1 target for you, but you got some guys that can really roll out there. And this past week, we saw Maven start to step up as well.
Yeah, I think, Maven's a really good player. And after week 1, we saw that he probably didn't get the touches that he deserved. And we tried to work him into the offense. And, he was doing what we know he can do. And it was good to see him get the ball. And, I wouldn't say we were trying to force it to him by any way, but, it was good to see him and make plays.
And talk to me about Hunter. What's it like with him this past weekend versus UNLV? You threw a go ball where he wasn't even. I mean, he was still trying to catch that DB, and you're like, he's going to take him. I'm going to throw it over the top. So it showed a ton of trust.
Yeah, and I think going into the week, we knew that we wanted to try to hit some go balls to the field, just with all the space out there. And yeah, and I threw it, and I was like, man, he's got to start, looking for this thing, because it looked like he wasn't, seeing it out of the air, and it was good for him to, see it at the last second and still be able to make a play on it.
I love the fact that he was still trying to climb the DB, right? He hadn't closed that cushion, so until you break that cushion, you shouldn't be looking back for the ball anyway, because you haven't broken the cushion. So it worked out with your anticipation and his ability to climb and still find the football. That worked out to be a great play. That was one of my favorites in the game, no doubt.
Yeah, it was good. And it was good to start fast too. I think, we started very poorly in week 1. And so it was good to come out of the gate swinging in the first quarter last week.
Tell me a little bit about the freshman, Jade Knott. I mean, he's going to be a phenom. Already you see what he can do out there. And he's got that sneaky speed where he just glides and he's just moving away from people. You're like, doesn't even look like he's working that hard. Tell me about him. What's he like in the huddle? And what's it like having him as a target?
Yeah. And, he's a smooth operator, and, you probably wouldn't be able to tell that he's a true freshman. And I think it was huge for him to get on campus in January and kind of first, when he first stepped in on campus, he started to blend in with the guys and become one of the guys. So it was nice to see that he didn't really act like a freshman. He's, he acts a little bit older than his age. And, it's good. He's, weapon out of the backfield. Put him at receiver a couple times last week. And, it's good to throw it to him. And, he had that amazing touchdown catch where he, kind of did a flip in the end zone. And I think it's going to be hard for defenses to guard him.
No doubt. He had a couple runs last week where didn't really get a lot of great blocking and just kind of created his own lanes and took off and used the speed to the outside. It was pretty impressive to watch him roll.
Yeah. And I think I know one in particular where, it was a little outside stretch play to the right, and we had a busted assignment up front, and he just kind of made it work on his own. And it's like, wow, that should not have worked at all. But, sometimes it's Jimmy's and Joe's versus X's and O's.
That's exactly right. When you got dudes, you can do a lot more. It makes coaches look great when you got dudes out there. So it's a big deal. So quarterback Jack Plummer, nice enough to join me before having dinner after practice. and talk a little bit about where his game is right now. I think he's very insightful in terms of where he sees himself at the position, what he's got going on. Obviously humble and plays the role of quarterback very well in terms of what he takes on himself. Got a good crew around him, as you heard, and so sounds pretty confident in the guys that he is playing with. That'll do it for today. I appreciate you guys watching. Just wanted to take a look at where the Bears are at and kind of bring that to you. Later on this week, we'll be talking about Notre Dame, give you a preview coming up, get you Jack's insights. He's played there before, so you're going to want to hear that one, talk about Notre Dame. Also, Coach's insights on what they're doing schematically and what kind of team they have. I am Mike Pulaski for Bear Insider and the Ultimate Insider Podcast. I appreciate you guys watching. I'll talk to you again soon. Go Bears.